Welcome to the Bad Dad Horror Podcast with your hosts, John Couture and Sierra Couture. We all have daddy issues. Ours just comes with an extra helping of blood and gore.
And welcome back to a very special episode of the Bad Dad Horror Podcast. I'm your host, John Couture.
And I'm your co-host, Sierra Couture.
Well, Sierra, it's our favorite time of the year. It's almost Halloween. How do you feel?
This is my favorite holiday, so I'm really excited. Do you like Halloween?
I love Halloween. I don't know if it's my favorite holiday. I mean, Christmas is amazing. I don't know how you can put it above Christmas, but you like it more than Christmas?
Yeah, I just like seeing people's costumes a lot and my own costume.
Well, that's very cool. And I'm sure the candy doesn't hurt at all either, does it?
Yeah, but a lot of the candy they give out, I don't like Snickers.
Oh, don't like Snickers. Listeners, we may have to do a paternity test on our next special episode of the Bad Dad Horror Podcast. Who doesn't like Snickers? Well, let us know if you like Snickers or what your favorite Halloween candy is. You can always get at us at baddadhorror@gmail.com or on our website, baddadhorror.com. Well, this is a very special episode of the Bad Dad Horror Podcast.
Yes.
As you know, we're in a midweek drop. We have now released a few episodes, and we're going off script a bit. You may have remembered from the episode we released earlier this week with Halloween, the 1978 movie, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We hinted that eventually the new movie Halloween Ends would come out, and that we'd go see it in theaters.
Yep.
Well, flash forward to the magic of Hollywood and podcasting. We have seen those movies, and we're going to talk about it. We don't normally put a spoiler at the head of our podcast because most of the movies we talk about are 30, 40 years old. So if you haven't seen them by now, then there really isn't any need for a spoiler alert. However, we will be talking and spoiling Halloween Ends, which just came out. So if you do not want to be spoiled, and you want to see it without being spoiled, you might want to turn off the podcast right now and come back after you've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Or you could stop as soon as you hear Halloween Ends being mentioned, you can go.
Correct. We are going to talk about the first two, the reboot trilogy. So if you just want to wait and listen to the first two, you can come back. So Sierra, let's talk a little bit about Halloween. We saw it a couple months ago, but again, just dropped this week the episode. What were you looking forward to in terms of these new films in Hollywood related back to the original 1978 movie?
Michael Myers to die.
You want Michael Myers to die. Well, the third film's called Halloween Ends, so we'll get there when we get to the podcast, but maybe you'll get what you want. You never know.
Yeah, your grandmother is Laurie Strode. She was almost murdered.
Wasn't it her brother who murdered all those babysitters?
No, it was not her brother. That's something that people made up.
Do you know that I pray every night that he would escape?
What the hell did you do that for?
So I can kill him.
Okay, well, let's jump right in, shall we? First film we're going to talk about today is Halloween 2018 version. It is directed by David Gordon Green, and it was basically set 40 years to the day from the events of the 1978 version of Halloween. It included Jamie Lee Curtis, which comes back and reprises her role as Laurie Strode.
Yep.
And it, and we talked about this, that the Halloween franchise is such that there is no real linear way to watch the movie. It's not like you go 1, 2, 3, 4, and it works. It's almost like a choose your own adventure, in that there are sequels that are direct to the film, and then there's like reboots that completely do their own thing, and then there's some wacky, versions where you can just skip. Like part 3 is an anthology that has nothing to do with Michael Myers, so it's kind of an interesting hodgepodge of our franchise. But we figured that it would be fun to watch the original Halloween 1978, and then go back and watch the newer films, the David Gordon Green trilogy that just finished. So this one is Halloween 2018. The events pick up. Michael Myers is in a psychiatric hospital. None of the events of the previous sequels that are in the franchise have taken place.
direct from the first one.
Correct. So this is a good way for you to watch The Ghost. So were you surprised, because the end of Halloween 1978 kind of leaves it open-ended, like many horror films, and that Michael Myers disappears. Yes. So were you surprised that he'd just been kind of sitting around in jail for the last 40 years?
Yeah, I was surprised about that, because if he can just like sit right up again, how did they even get him in jail? Now, if he can kill a lot of people, how did he cooperate to get into the jail? Like,
yeah, I think it's not something that they really talk about in the franchise, but I think Michael Myers' power, and we see a little bit in this new trilogy, is derived from the people he kills. He kind of takes the life force of the people he kills, and that it makes him almost completely indestructible in many ways. A single gunshot isn't going to stop him. Stabbing with a knife isn't going to stop him. Being set on fire isn't going to stop him. So, but it does slow him down a bit. So perhaps they slowed him down a bit in the 1978 version, enough for them to get him put in jail.
They said in Halloween Kills, which is skipping for a bit, but they said that the more he kills, the more powerful he gets. Like, the
Correct.
more harder he is going to be to stop and eventually kill.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we see that in the 2018 version. It's 40 years later. We're not only checking in on Michael Myers, who's in a psychiatric hospital, is being visited by two podcasters. He's on the verge of being transferred to a quote-unquote high max security prison, which is just, movie talk for, hey, we're gonna make a really dumb decision and try to move Michael Myers on Halloween, and guess what? He's going to escape. So, again, it wasn't too surprising. But we check in Laurie Strode. She's really living in fear. The last 40 years, Michael Myers has done a number on her, both psychologically and mentally and physically, in that, she now basically lives as a hermit inside a cage, waiting for Michael Myers to return.
She's been waiting there for him to return. She has different things around her house, like this cabin that opens up for her daughter and her granddaughter to go into when he attacks. And she's trained her daughter and trained herself for if he ever returns.
It's a good question, because I think this is of the new trilogy. What I really enjoyed about all three movies was that it takes the idea of evil, of these events that happen to people's lives, and how they leave irrevocable damage upon their souls and on who they are as a person. And I think Laurie Strode and her family pay the price for a series of killings that were seemingly random back in 1978, 40 years ago. And even after 40 years, the evil of Michael Myers still trumps everything in their life. It is the guiding rule that Laurie lives her life, and that her daughter lived it, but was trying to push back, say no. Karen said no, I'm done with this, and Allison in a lot of ways is caught in the middle, because she really loves her grandmother and wants to have more of a relationship like that, but at the same time she also realizes that her mom has valid points as well. So how do you think about the idea that evil can leave a stain upon a person that just continues to interfere with their lives years and decades later?
Well, in Laurie Strode's case, I really think, it wasn't really a surprise that it left a mark on her, because he killed basically her entire thing of friends in that movie.
Yeah.
All her friends that she was talking to as you saw her exit the school.
Right.
All of them got killed.
True.
So I feel like, it can definitely leave a stain on a person.
Do you think she would have been better off had Michael Myers been killed at the end of 1978? The Dr. Loomis, steps in and prevents the cops from killing Michael Myers in the 2018 movie, kind of like a preamble where we get to see the sheriff and all those events that take place there. Do you think it would have had a different effect had Michael Myers been killed outright from there? Or do you think the unsolved aspect and the fact that he was still, the unresolved aspect, the fact that he was still alive, had more of an impact?
Yeah, I feel like it would have been better for her if he had died.
Sure.
Because then you wouldn't be scared of him coming back.
Right.
you wouldn't have to make a cage if he wasn't gonna come.
Right, but yet in the same way, you still would have that pain and suffering
Yeah,
of
you'd
losing
still
your
be
friends.
terrified.
You definitely would have some psychological issues at play there. I really enjoyed Halloween 2018. I like the fact that they set it up as Laurie still being in fear. Then they kind of play a little twist on it towards the end, where we realize that Laurie isn't living in fear. She has actually been training all these years, and she's not living in fear. She's living in preparation for the return of Michael Myers. She knows Michael's going to return, and when he does, she's going to be ready. Her family's going to be ready, and they're going to get their just rewards. And to a certain extent, there's people that die along the way. You wouldn't be a Halloween movie without it. But I like the way this one ended. I like the fact that Laurie's able to bring 3 generations of women, very strong women in her family, Allison, Karen, and Laurie, the three Strode women, and they're able to go toe to toe with Michael Myers and hold their own. And not only hold their own, but they actually, trap Michael Myers in a burning house. For all things considered, game over. House burns down, Michael burns to crisp, and there goes the franchise. And so I thought it was a very satisfying way to end the first film. But is that the case? What did you think of that aspect of it?
Of the burning fire?
Oh, just the fact that the women were able to get the revenge. And,
really, really, really liked that idea. I also really liked towards the end when Karen was acting like she couldn't do it. And she lured Michael into that trap.
Right.
And my only question is if Karen knew about the whole plan the whole time, or if Karen thought her mom was just living in fear the whole time.
Yeah, I think Karen had a lot of, I think in the first part of the movie where they showed her fighting with Laurie and the fact that she didn't like Laurie and she thought Laurie was I think that was real. But I think towards the end when she saw Michael return, that sort of flipped the switch for her, where she said, yeah, you know what? Okay, my mom has raised me. She's trained me. She wasn't just crazy. The boogeyman exists, and now we're going to go to work. And I love that whole sequence. The third act, last 30 minutes of that movie, I really enjoyed. It was some of the best Halloween footage and some of the best Halloween movies I've seen to date.
Yeah.
So tell me, Sierra, how did you feel about Halloween 2018? How would you rank it, and did you enjoy it?
The ending was very satisfying. I really enjoyed it, to be very honest. But, I think it was just really good. And I like how they built it up to tell you that Laurie was living in fear. But she wasn't, and she was, living in revenge.
Sure,
for
absolutely.
Myers. But, I really liked it. I would rate it a 10.
A 10 out of 10. Wow, a perfect movie rating for Halloween 2018. You heard it here first.
How do you know that?
All right, secure a perimeter. Hospital's on lockdown.
All right, listen, folks. Listen, folks, please. The boogeyman is at large. He's got no choice but to emerge. He is an apex predator. When he surfaces, there will be no pause. There will be no empathy. This ends when Michael is dead. Michael Myers will be executed tonight, and it will not go without witness. We need all of you. Evil dies tonight.
Evil dies tonight.
All right, everybody, calm down. The sheriff's department has this.
No, Sheriff, we will not calm down. We have watched your department fail. Fail tonight. This is Haddonfield. This is our town.
He killed my daughter 40 years ago and desecrated her body. Evil dies tonight.
God damn it, Brackett. I am the law, not you. Jones.
Moving right along, the second film in the trilogy was the 2021 film, also directed by David Gordon Green, and that is Halloween Kills. The film picks up basically right at the end of the credits of Halloween 2018. Michael Myers is still in the basement. He's going to be burnt to a crisp, and Laurie, who suffered a catastrophic stabbing at the hands of Michael Myers, is en route to the hospital with Karen and Allison. although I believe Allison was in a different place. But they see fire trucks go by as they're being transported to the hospital, and I remember Laurie screams out, "Let them die, just let them burn." But you get a feeling that unfortunately the firefighters are going to help try to save Laurie's house, inexplicably, unknowingly.
That Michael Myers is inside.
Yeah.
Now, if they had knew Michael Myers was inside, they probably wouldn't have gone and tried to delay the house. They probably would have been like...
Probably not. I think it would have been like, hey, you know what? Let's just let this one burn down.
Yeah.
But they don't. They go in. They go in to try to save the house, and unfortunately, they not only allow Michael Myers to live, but then they also allow him to escape. And and this is one of the best sequences I thought in terms of pure killing, that really showed the ability of Michael Myers and his killing machine. Is when he comes out and he kills all those firefighters, which are trained, muscular men that are brave, and he just goes through them like a hot knife through butter.
They all had like good weapons, like firefighters' hoses have a lot of power.
Sure.
And they
had axes and
they had axes. Some guy had the chainsaw thing, but in the circle, I don't know what you call that.
Yeah, like a Jaws of Life chainsaw, and then unfortunately he attacks Michael Myers, and Michael Myers is just like, "Hello," and I'm going to use it upon you, and turns it around on him.
Yeah.
And he gets his comeuppance that way. But yeah, I mean, the first 15 minutes of that film, of the Halloween Kills, I think was just absolute Michael Myers in his glory. If the first film, Halloween 2018, is about Laurie Strode getting her revenge and about the empowerment of their family and living up to standing up to the curse and trying to forge a new life, I think Halloween Kills really is a film that showcases and spotlights Michael Myers as the killing machine that he is.
Especially at the end there.
Definitely at the end. We'll get there. It picks up right the same night. The theme of this film seems to be the cheers that go up, "Evil dies tonight," which is taken up by the townspeople. And, this is really the first film for me in the franchise that kind of takes the whole idea of Michael Myers beyond the concept of just Michael and Laurie and a family and babysitters, and kind of showcases that the whole town of Haddonfield has been affected for 40 years. It isn't just 40 years of Laurie Strode living with the memory of Michael Myers. This is the whole town who's basically had their identity tied to this killer. And after 40 years, enough's enough. And, some of the aspects I really loved about Halloween Kills is that they get Tommy Doyle comes back and Lonnie comes back. Some of the kids that survived from the original 1978 version, their characters come back in Halloween Kills, although played by different actors, obviously. But I really like the fact I really like the way they handled that, and it was a nice touch to kind of not only kind of put a bow on their stories to kind of show how not only was Laurie affected, but Tommy and Lonnie, their whole lives have been living in this fear of the boogeyman, and in a certain way they're able to try and get some revenge themselves.
I like how all the characters from Halloween and Halloween 2018, not all of them, but a whole lot of the survivors come back. Like, I think her name, I don't remember what her name was, but it was a kid with braids from original Halloween. She came back, just still not a kid anymore, obviously.
Right.
A kid from Halloween 2018 came back in Halloween Kills.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same night, so I mean, the people are, the first two films in this trilogy, Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills, are basically take place, the same 48-hour period, so to speak. Yeah. So, a lot of the same characters will be back. But, I really enjoyed, checking in on especially Tommy Doyle, which I know you don't know who Anthony Michael Hall is, but he was the guy who plays Tommy Doyle. He's a great actor, comedy actor, but during the 80s he was mostly he was in the Breakfast Club, and he was in Weird Science. He was a lot of comedies, a lot of John Hughes. I'm sorry?
I don't know what any of those are.
I know, and I feel like I'm being the bad dad by not introducing you to Breakfast Club and Weird Science, and and Pretty in Pink and everything else that Anthony Michael Hall has been in. So, but he's a great actor from the 80s. He did some horror TV and some different things in horror. So he's kind of got the horror chops in terms of an actor, and he's a great actor. So, seeing him play Tommy was a highlight for me. I think it was really good. He was able to portray Tommy and show, the strength that he's gotten over the years, but also a lot of the same fragility that Tommy had in the original 1978 movie. And that, ultimately, at the end of the day, is a lot of the bravado he had was more of a false bravado.
I really like how Tommy Doyle, in the original one, Tommy Doyle was a kid and he was bullied. He wasn't standing up for himself, and he wasn't leading anything. But then Tommy Doyle in the future on Halloween Kills, he gets up and he knows how to stand up for
himself and stand up. Well, yeah, absolutely. And again, that's from director David Gordon Green. That's some great character development and seeing those arcs and seeing them come back. And ultimately, unfortunately for Tommy and Lonnie and most of the characters from the original 1978 film, Halloween Kills doesn't end the way they would hope to, and Michael Myers is able to close off a whole lot of loose ends as Halloween Kills comes to an end, as it were. But it was certainly a satisfying, and I think between the first two movies, Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills, for me were, I would say, with Halloween 1978, were the three best films in the franchise for me. I enjoyed them thoroughly. I think they provide a great overarching story arc, and I think they provide really good closure. Unfortunately, we're left at the end of Halloween Kills. What's that?
I said not the same good closure as Halloween Kills.
Right. There wasn't exactly closure at the end of Halloween Kills. We're left with the...
Not that people wanted.
Right. It was left to where it could have been... it could have been, Michael could have been gone for good, but he disappears, and as Michael's often want to do, he disappears out of the light, and so we're left with the unknown, and that kind of sets up the third film of the franchise. But before we get there, I need to get your thoughts. How did you feel overall about Halloween Kills, and what would you rank it?
I liked Halloween Kills, but at the end, I didn't really like how he... It's kind of weird how he killed a whole set of 40 people at once.
Sure.
I mean, they were kind of coming at him all at once. I don't feel like, even if he was that strong by now, I don't feel like he'd be able to fight off 40 people at once.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, he, for me, if it was only two films in this, if it ended with Halloween Kills, and if it ended with the mob killing Michael Myers, and then tack on the end of Halloween Ends, and we'll get there, not to spoil it too quickly. But if you tack on the ending of Halloween Ends to Halloween Kills, I think that's two perfect movies. I think you make with Halloween 1978. That's a trilogy of films that I think exquisitely tells the story of Michael Myers, and I think that's great. And unfortunately, though, that's not what happened. So what did you rank it? What would you give it a ranking?
9.
9. Okay, not bad. Not out of 10. Not a 10 like Halloween 2018, but solid 9. That's pretty good.
It's been 4 years since Michael Myers vanished without a trace.
Hello?
Certain that I saw him watching me.
You pretend like you moved on, but you're actually just obsessed with death.
What are you gonna do when Michael comes back for you? Because he is coming.
But this time, something feels different. He's more dangerous. killed my daughter. But tonight, I will kill him. Come and get me. Maybe the only way he can die is if I die too. It all ends now. You came here to kill me, so do it.
Moving right along now, again, I also want to caution that we are going into Hollywood Ends now, a 2022 film.
This is where the spoilers come in.
Directed by David Gordon Green, and yes, this is a spoiler. This is your last spoiler alert. If you don't want to get spoiled on Hollywood Ends, please turn off the podcast and come back when you've seen it.
This isn't just like a light spoiler. We'll probably be describing the entire thing, so it's like...
Yep. All right. Well, okay, they've been warned, Sierra, so let's get into Hollywood Ends. And Hollywood Ends was an interesting movie. Now, this is the first film that you've seen in theaters that's a horror film.
Yeah.
That was kind of the neat thing about this. We went back and watched Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills, and then to get ready. And then this weekend, we went and saw Hollywood Ends, second weekend of release, so right around Halloween, with a good crowd. And so tell me off the bat, well, first we'll get a little bit into the film. You know, this film it does pick up right after the Halloween Kills in a way, but it doesn't. It shows an event that happens in 2019, which I guess was the year after Michael Myers, or the events of 2018 and Halloween Kills. But we pick up on Corey Cunningham, who's a 21-year-old gardener or lawn boy who, fills in last minute as a babysitter and has a tragic event where he accidentally kills the child that he was babysitting. It's set, the whole way it started, I'm sitting there going, wow, this is a very weird setup. And I had a feeling that they were going to kind of do like a Friday the 13th part 5 where Jason Voorhees isn't really Jason Voorhees. So I thought, oh great, we're going to get set up where Corey Cunningham is going to take the mantle of Michael Myers, and we're not going to really get a Michael Myers film. It's going to be a whole different thing. That did not happen. But it sets up after that sequence. We get 4 years past between 2018, so we're in the present day, 2022.
Yeah.
Where the majority of the film takes place. And ultimately, a lot of the film is centered around Corey Cunningham and the fallout from his tragic accident, and how the town is, basically has demonized him and made him out to be, a murderer, where, he technically wasn't a murderer, it was an accident, and which he feels a lot of remorse for, but the town just won't let him, they won't forgive him, they won't let him move on. And he falls for Allison, who is Laurie's granddaughter, and Laurie actually sets him up. But, things start to spiral out of hand for Corey, and we get kind of a Christine. I know you haven't seen Christine yet. We'll get there.
Don't know.
We get kind of a Christine storyline where Michael Myers is, being used as a weapon against the bullies of Corey, as it were. But Corey does some killing too. So, it's an interesting.
Corey does most of it, actually.
He does do a lot of. He does, but it's it's kind of for 75% of the movie. It's not a Michael Myers movie. It's a Corey Cunningham movie.
I like that movie.
Yeah, I like the movie too. But it's for me. I love the ending, but at the same time, I didn't care. It wasn't the best part of it. I thought, again, we could have chopped off the end of Halloween Ends, put it on Halloween Kills, wrap up that series. It's been great. You could have Corey Cunningham start a whole new franchise and a whole new direction if the next film. But so tell me, what did you think about Hollywood Ends?
Really good, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like, again, like you said, it could have been a whole new movie. Could have been like completely known, like Scarecrow Man.
Yeah.
He wears a Scarecrow mask if you don't get that.
Yes.
But I think it could have just been a whole nother thing. Like, It didn't really touch on Michael Myers at all, and it could have just been some guy that went crazy from all the bullying.
Right.
And, I mean, it didn't have to be Michael Myers.
It was almost like it felt like there was two movies going on. You know, it's kind of like they took two films. You got the Corey Cunningham aspect, then you got the Michael Myers aspect, and they kind of, you know, hodgepodged them together and, you know, made a Frankenstein type approach to a movie. And
Elmer glued
Elmer's glued it together, and I didn't care for it as much as I did for the first two films. I mean, you know, I thought it was good, you know, but I didn't think it was as good as the Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills. But, you know, there's some aspects I liked about it, other things I didn't care for.
Yeah. Same as well here for me, because it just had some really good aspects to it. Like, I love the ending. I like the Corey Cunningham. I like the beginning, honestly. I mean, I just felt bad for him at first.
Right. Yeah, they definitely...
As the movie goes on, you begin to feel not bad for him at all.
No, he certainly, as evil takes over and takes grip of his body, you definitely have less feeling of compassion for Corey Cunningham. But, you know, at the start of the film, you do feel bad for him because, you know, the child he was babysitting, which I can't, the name character.
That child was annoying, man.
He was annoying. He locked him in in an attic room, and he was just trying to get out, and that's what caused the accident where the boy dies.
He banged open the door, and it caused the boy to fall off the railing. I mean, this is a huge house. There's multiple stories. He was multiple stories up.
He fell about 30 feet, and spoiler alert, he did not survive. So
and. Coincidentally, Corey Cunningham had a knife in his hand before he had been cutting food. Do you not remember that part? Mm-hmm. He had a knife, and it could have looked like he had hurt him in some other way.
Yeah, but they didn't really play into that. But, you know, and the thing is, you know, and then after that event, you kind of have a 4-year, passage of time. So, you know, in the intervening 4 years...
It's hard to know what really everyone thought.
Right, but in the intervening 4 years, Corey Cunningham is left basically, you know, as the scorn of the town. You know, this is a town, Haddonfield, as we found out in the first two films. You know, this is a town that's been scarred by Michael Myers. They have to live every day as being the town of Michael Myers.
It used to be a town where nothing happened. It was like not like boring, but like it used to like. It was perfect, but then Michael Myers came and everything was ruined, and immediately everyone is scared and fear, and
yeah, absolutely. And you know, I think that's the problem you run into is that and you get kind of that, you know, then the build up in the intervening 4 years, the little montage is that people, you know, think Michael Myers is always coming back. They're like, oh no, you know, they had some murders the following year, and it was like, oh no, it was Michael Myers because Michael doesn't use a gun. And then they had a suicide where a woman, you know, hung herself up, and people were wondering if it was Michael Myers that caused the suicide, but no, it was just, you know, so, you know, they're left wondering, you know, is Michael Myers gone for good, or is he just, you know, hibernating? Does evil hibernate, or is evil always around? And, you know, and I think in a town like that that's always living on pins and needles, I think ultimately at the end of the day, they wanted a new boogeyman, and while Michael Myers was away, they made Corey Cunningham as their boogeyman. He was you know, the stand-in for Michael Myers. So in that respect, I like the parallel that they did in Halloween Ends between Michael and Corey.
So used to having something to look down on, to having something to talk about that was not like. But when Michael Myers went, they just couldn't. Because they thought he was gone for a minute there. And then Corey Cunningham had an accident with a kid he was babysitting, and he was basically the only thing that they thought that they had left to make fun of or look down upon. So they started.
Yeah, and that brings a good question, and that's kind of the leading question of this whole film, Halloween Ends, is, you know, what is evil? Is evil a part of nature? Like Michael Myers was born evil. As a kid, he killed his sister, and he kept killing. All he knows is killing, and that's the only way he can express himself. He doesn't even speak in this franchise, you know, except for a few stray words here and there. So, you know, is evil something that is you're born with? Are you born evil? Or is evil a product of the environment upon which you're raised and treated? Because Corey Cunningham would certainly be a person who was not evil up until the point where the accident changed his life. But that accident and that that injection of evil into his life made him evil and allowed him to be used by Michael Myers as an instrument of evil. And I think to a certain extent you see a little bit of that in Allison, because I think Allison starts to fall for Corey, and she starts to have a dark side, which again, was she born with that evil? Did it come from Michael Myers? Did it come from Laurie? Or was it something that was a product of her upbringing? So what do you think about evil? Do you think it's something that you're born with, or is it something that you learn, or it can be a little of both?
Yeah, I feel like it's a mixture of both for different cases, different people.
Yep.
There's definitely some cases out there where people were born with it. Like, there's just no way. Like, they've been killing up until, like, their whole life. Mm-hmm. And then there's some people that just had a really terrifying experience. And
or they're bullied by their parents, or bullied at school. Abused.
They can't get over it, and so they start to become evil.
Yeah, so I agree, and I think, I think we see a good example of each of the two variations of evil and how they come and play together. Interestingly enough, though, it's one where I was kind of hoping at the end that we get some sort of redemption from Corey. I was hoping that Corey would, would set up a way for Michael to be killed. And kind of redeem himself in those lives, because he's Allison's fallen in love with him, so you would hope that there'd be some sort of redeeming quality there, but that's not the way the movie goes. Corey Cunningham goes full on Michael Myers, complete with the mask, and unfortunately, just like Halloween Kills, he runs into Laurie Strode, and Laurie's like, I don't care if you're wearing the mask or if you're real Michael or not, you're not coming in here to get me. And she takes care of business, as it were, with Corey Cunningham. Although at the end, she really didn't, because he
ended up killing himself. And his last words were like, "If I can't have her,
nobody will."
And he stabbed himself. But then
that was a very gross scene.
Unfortunately, then Allison walks in, and she has the idea that her mother had
She
killed.
walks in at the wrong time, and Laurie's holding the knife, and Corey's bleeding out, and she certainly thinks that
Laurie had done the job.
Laurie is one who did the job, correct. So it was an interesting respect, but then, if that wasn't bad enough, everything on the family, then Michael Myers shows up for real, and then we get the resolution that we were all hoping for. We get the Halloween Ends part of Halloween Ends. There's no question about it. Michael Myers is no longer with us, right? I mean, they stabbed him, they killed him, they gave him a parade through town, which was funny.
Sliced his throat.
They sliced his throat.
Wasn't dead enough, though. So
wasn't dead enough, as that was a great line. He's
took
dead.
Him to like a human-sized. What do you call them?
Oh, when they chop up cars. Yeah, it's like a...
Yeah, it's like...
So they before that, though, they have this whole parade, which I think was just... I mean, it was... I was sitting there giggling in the theater because it was just so surreal. But when you think about it in the context of Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills, it makes perfect sense. This is a person who has basically defined this whole town's identity for 40 years. And now they finally can put it to rest and put it behind them, and they do. They take him to the junkyard. They put him in the crusher. They put him in the crusher, the car crusher, the grinder, and the camera doesn't pan away. There is no room for debate. Michael Myers
is ultimately dead.
He is crushed into a billion pieces. His head explodes and is crushed. I mean, it's pretty violent. So there is no question he's over.
I mean, he's exploded many heads before. So.
It's true. So he finally gets what's coming to him. Now, the question for you, Sierra, is do you think this is the end of the Halloween franchise? Or do you think there's some stories we could tell moving forward that makes sense within the construct of the Halloween framework?
Definitely the end of Michael Myers. He is not coming back.
No, Michael Myers is dead, correct.
And it might be the end for the Laurie family, too, although Allison may be able to come back and...
Yeah, I agree. I think this is the end of Laurie Strode's. I think, Halloween 1978, Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends. Those 4 films, I think, complete the Laurie Strode saga and complete her story. However, I wouldn't be surprised if they bring back the Halloween through Allison.
Yeah.
Because she definitely within the film Hollywood Ends, she has definitely been affected by the murders and the violence around her, and fallen in love with Corey, who's a killer, and she shows signs of being open to violence, and being open to that. So, and at the end, Laurie has the mask. There was a nice little
Laurie has the masks at her house,
and she's finishing up her novel. Yeah.
No one really knows. Well, people might know, but me and my dad might know. Me and my dad don't know really what that means.
Yeah, it's open to interpretation. I think it's a nice little Easter egg. I think it's a trophy. I think Laurie took it as a trophy for. I finally got my boogeyman
souvenir,
and I got my souvenir. But at the same time, I think it opens up the possibility that they started this whole trilogy in 2018 with the podcasters visiting Michael in the asylum with the mask, thinking that the mask was a huge totem that is part of the reason why Michael Myers kills.
The mask might also be part of his power too.
Sure.
Because as you saw, he killed those. I don't know what that was. He killed those people just to get his mask back from their car. He did all that just to get the mask. So I think the mask certainly has a piece of play into him.
Certainly for Michael Myers, the mask is a huge part of his persona and his identity. But I think also it does have certain powers. And I think, ultimately, I don't think that's the last time we're going to see the Michael Myers mask. I think you're going to see that mask in another film. And I wouldn't be surprised if Allison is the one who's wearing the mask. Because I think, ultimately, I think all the violence in her upbringing, all the violence that she's experienced in the last 5 years has had an effect upon her. And I think that effect is what we're going to see and go from there. And I think, ultimately it's going to be passing the time, maybe 5-10 years. Laurie will be, have passed of natural causes. And I think it'll be Allison will turn to the dark side, as it were. And that's an interesting story. And I'd love to see that. Is there any story that you want to see in the Halloween franchise that they haven't explored yet?
I definitely want to see Allison come back. Now, I don't know if I want her to be Michael Myers or if I don't yet, but I definitely want her to come back. And maybe it would be cool if Corey came back too, but I also think he's kind of dead.
Yeah, Corey's kind of dead. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that he's dead.
You slice your own throat, you're pretty much dead.
I pretty much forgot that he did that.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, so let's get your final thoughts on Hollywood Ends. What did you think about it?
You keep saying Hollywood Ends.
Halloween Ends.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's all right. We're not perfect.
But I think it was really good. Honestly, I like the Corey Cunningham part, and I like the backstory, but I rate it a 9.5 out of 10.
Wow, you rated it higher than Hollywood Kills with a 9.5. Yeah, I didn't care for it as much as the first two. I think it was a solid film, but it wasn't a Halloween film in my mind. So if I was ranking it, it's probably more of a 7-8 area. So, but it was, I liked the resolution. I liked the ending. Again, if you take the ending, chop it off Halloween Ends and put it on Halloween Kills, I think you have a perfect two movies that would be a great addition to the 1978 original film. So now the question remains here. What is the favorite film of the 4 Halloween films that you've seen? And what is the favorite film that you've seen so far in our little journey?
I have a question for you, too, after this.
Okay.
But my favorite Halloween film is Halloween 2018.
Okay.
The favorite one I've seen so far, I like the Halloween 2018, but I also really like The Shining so far.
Okay. All right.
So, and my question for you is,
sure.
Do you think any one of these had, like, a really flaw that stuck out to you that was just like oh wait, okay, yeah, that really made you think about it?
I don't know. I mean, I think there's definitely you whenever you try to shoehorn in a trilogy of a film that was 40 years old, you're gonna run into certain things. Like for me, the biggest, while I love Will Patton as an actor who plays the sheriff that ends up falling in love with Laurie at the end, his character wasn't one that was in the original film. I mean, obviously, yes, there was a character that does that type of thing, but he wasn't, Will Patton didn't play that. So, I think a lot of the storyline stuff with his character about him killing his partner accidentally. And then, that was kind of a little over the lines of saying that's not playing fair in terms of the rules of Halloween. And and ultimately it pays off to a certain extent, but but he's really pushed to the sidelines and Halloween ends, and I really think that had he played a bigger role in bringing out the final events, I think it would have made a little more sense in the whole grand scheme of things.
Yeah. I also noticed that in each of the Halloween movies, the jack-o'-lantern at the beginning is changed, and it kind of depicts what's going to happen in the movie. Like, for Halloween Kills, for example, there were a whole lot of jack-o'-lanterns. Like, there's just more and more of them, and they were bright and burning. But in Halloween Ends, then you kept seeing more jack-o'-lanterns kept coming with more, like, frightening faces until one came and it was empty, like a new jack-o'-lantern.
Right, it's probably communicating Corey Cunningham being a fresh pumpkin that needs to that Michael Myers is able to shape into whatever horror that he wants. It's a good example. I'm sure we could spend a lot of time just talking about the openings to these movies because I'm sure there's a lot to be said to it, but that's an interesting point for sure. Okay, well, we've enjoyed these films, the Halloween films. Did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy going to see your first film in your first horror film in a theater?
It really helped that it was like all dark around and people weren't that much talking. Like you couldn't hear people in other rooms. Right,
definitely. Yeah, it's hard for us to watch films sometimes because you got your brother and mommy around. Well. This has been a great bonus episode. There may even be a unique twist on the episode for Halloween, so come back and join us Monday where we're going to drop a new episode. It may be a special episode before we get back into the track the way things were. Until then, we'll be back.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie. Never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
I'm getting another beer. You want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back.